there is a moment most people do not notice, not because it is hidden, but because it is ordinary. It happens in silence, in the small surrender, in the private compromise, in the instant you feel a difficult emotion rise in you, and instead of standing your ground, you obey it. You reach for distraction. You reopen the conversation in your head. You replay the insult. You postpone the task. You let another hour dissolve into noise. You tell yourself it is minor. You tell yourself you will recover tomorrow. You tell yourself this is just how life feels now. But that is the breach, not the breakdown, not the public collapse. The breach, the first crack in self-command, is rarely dramatic. It is rarely visible. From the outside, a person can still appear intelligent, composed, functional. They can answer messages, they can go to work. Functional, they can answer messages, they can go to work. They can maintain the image of someone who is handling things, and yet internally, their mind has stopped being their own. They are no longer directing attention. Attention is being dragged. They are no longer choosing what deserves emotional weight. Emotion is assigning weight for them. They are no longer deciding what matters. Impulse, pressure, memory, insecurity, and digital overstimulation are deciding what matters by volume alone. That is how inner life gets invaded. Not all at once, not by some grand catastrophe. By repeated permission, by what you allow to enter without scrutiny, by what you allow to stay without challenge, by what you allow to grow without resistance. A man says he wants peace but keeps feeding agitation. He says he wants discipline but keeps negotiating with weakness. He says he wants clarity but keeps living in ways that make clarity impossible. And after a while, he no longer suffers only from pain. He suffers from contradiction. He suffers from the quiet humiliation of knowing that his stated values and his daily behavior are no longer on speaking terms. That is a dangerous place to live, because when a person betrays themselves long enough, something in them starts to lower its expectations. They stop imagining greatness as something near and begin treating self-respect like an old idea. They normalize mental chaos. They call it stress. They normalize emotional instability. They call it depth. They normalize passivity. They call it patience. They normalize distraction. They call it modern life. And if nothing interrupts that pattern, they do not merely lose time. They lose authority over their own existence. The first lesson is this: an unshakable mind is not lost in one blow. It is lost in permissions. That matters, because what is lost through permission must be rebuilt through refusal. Refusal to indulge what weakens you. Refusal to call confusion complexity. Refusal to call emotional indulgence honesty. Refusal to hand your inner world over to every passing force that asks for control. Most people never make that refusal clearly. They keep living half invaded, half awake, half ruled. And because the culture around them is equally fractured, their condition feels normal. But normal does not mean healthy. Common does not mean healthy. Common does not mean harmless. And familiar does not mean true. There are people right now who have not known a full hour of undivided attention in years. People who cannot sit in silence without reaching for input. People whose moods determine their ethics, whose anxiety determines their schedule, whose fear of judgment shapes their personality more than conviction ever has. And the tragedy is not only that this weakens them, it teaches them to mistake weakness for identity. They begin to say, "This is just how I am. I am an overthinker. I am emotionally intense. I am bad at discipline. I am easily affected. I am just not one of those strong people." But what they call identity is often untrained, habit repeated under low scrutiny. What they call personality is often accumulated permission. What they call authenticity is often loyalty to dysfunction. This is where Stoicism enters. Not as decoration, not as a library of quotations for men who want to sound severe, but as an alarm. A hard, unwelcome, clarifying alarm. because Marcus Aurelius does not ask whether your disturbance feels sincere. Epictetus does not ask whether your impulse feels compelling. Seneca does not ask whether the crowd approves of your habits. They ask something far more demanding. What are you obeying? That is the question underneath all of it. Not what are you feeling, not what happened to you, not what do others think. What are you obeying? If you are obeying, anger is your ruler. If you are obeying comfort, comfort is your ruler. If you are obeying distraction, distraction is your ruler. If you are obeying imagined audiences, then your life belongs to people who are not even present. And once you see that clearly, you can no longer call yourself free just because your cage has no visible bars. The Stoics understood something the modern world tries very hard to help you forget. The greatest instability does not come from difficulty. It comes from inward disorder. A person can survive grief, insult, uncertainty, loss, fatigue, and rejection with dignity if their governing faculty remains intact. But give that same person a mind that cannot distinguish discomfort from danger, desire from duty, feeling from truth, and they will be defeated by things that never had to conquer them. This is why the unshakable mind is not a matter of temperament. It is a matter of training. It is built by learning what deserves your agreement and what does not. It is built by learning that not every thought deserves belief. Not every emotion deserves expression. Not every urge deserves obedience. Not every fear deserves strategy. Not every opinion deserves defense. Not every discomfort deserves escape. And that sounds simple until life applies pressure. Because pressure reveals what philosophy has actually become inside you. Not what you post, not what you admire, not what you can explain. What you can hold when the mind begins to tremble. That realization changed the way I understood this entirely. I reached a point where I had to admit that it was possible to look composed on the outside and still be internally scattered, to be functional and still be ruled by noise, to appear calm and still waste enormous energy on reactions, mental clutter, and things that never deserved that much power. That was a hard recognition, because the mind is very skilled at hiding disorder behind competence. You can still get things done and be inwardly weak. You can still speak clearly and be inwardly ruled. You can still maintain the image of steadiness while privately surrendering your peace dozens of times a day. And the Stoic response to that is not shame for its own sake. It is exposure, clean exposure. See the leak, name the compromise. Stop romanticizing instability. That is the second lesson. Weakness often survives by borrowing respectable language. Overthinking calls itself care. Emotional chaos calls itself sensitivity. Passivity calls itself patience. Cowardice calls itself peacekeeping. Avoidance calls itself waiting for the right time. But the results tell the truth. If a habit leaves you less decisive, less stable, less honest, less capable of directing yourself under pressure, then whatever noble language you wrapped around it, it is still weakening you. The Stoics were ruthless about this. Not cruel, ruthless. They understood that the mind is always practicing something. If you repeatedly practice reaction, you become more reactive. If you repeatedly practice resentment, you become more resentful. If you repeatedly practice self-excusing interpretations, you become harder to correct. The soul hardens around what it rehearses. That is why Marcus Aurelius returns again and again to perception, not because perception is abstract, but because perception is the front gate. Before action comes interpretation, before collapse comes consent. Before emotion takes over behavior, there is usually a judgment, quick and often invisible, that says, this is unbearable, this is personal, this is urgent, this means something about me, this must be answered now. And once that judgment is accepted, the mind begins building a world around it. So here is the third lesson. The first battle is not against events, it is against the meaning you rush to give them. Most suffering is not born the moment life touches you. It grows in the story you attach to what happened. A message is ignored. Now it means rejection. A criticism is heard. Now it means rejection. A criticism is heard. Now it means humiliation. A delay occurs. Now it means failure. A season of uncertainty arrives. Now it means your life is slipping away. The event may be real. The pain may be real. The mind often intensifies both by treating first impressions as verdicts. Epictetus warned about this with extraordinary precision. He knew that human beings are disturbed not simply by things, but by their opinions about things. Modern life only amplifies this. We live surrounded by triggers that invite instant interpretation. A headline, a comment, a glance, a number on a screen, a silence from someone we want approval from. We are being trained toward immediate reaction, immediate meaning, immediate disturbance. And then we wonder why peace feels fragile. It feels fragile because it was never built on examined judgment. It was built on convenience, on favorable conditions, on temporary relief, on the hope that life would not press too hard. But peace built on favorable conditions is not peace, it is dependency. The Stoic alarm sounds at exactly this point. It says, stop calling yourself helpless when you have not yet trained perception. Stop saying the world is too much when you have not yet learned to refuse exaggerated interpretations. Stop assuming that because you feel shaken, you must therefore be in danger. This is the fourth lesson. Discomfort is not the same as harm. A restless mind will confuse them constantly. An undisciplined nervous system will treat them as identical. A weak culture will encourage the confusion because people who cannot tolerate discomfort are easier to manipulate, easier to distract, easier to sell relief to. But your growth begins the moment you stop bowing to that confusion. You can feel uncertainty without being broken by it. You can feel anger without becoming its instrument. You can feel fear without turning fear into prophecy. You can feel loneliness without making loneliness your identity. You can feel pressure without surrendering your judgment. The unshakable mind is not numb. It is not cold. It is not the absence of feeling. It is the refusal to hand feeling the throne. That is what the Stoics offer at their best, not emotional suppression, hierarchy. Feeling has a place. It does not have command. And if you do not establish that hierarchy within yourself, life will establish another one for you. Your moods will govern your schedule. Your appetite will govern your discipline. Your fear will govern your voice. Your insecurity will govern your relationships. Your craving for relief will govern your standards. That is how you lose your mind first. Not by madness in the dramatic sense, but by ceasing to be the authority within your own interior life. You wake up and your state already has a vote. Your memory already has a vote. Your irritation already has a vote. Your fatigue already has a vote. The algorithm already has a vote. The unfinished resentment already has a vote. The comparison you absorbed yesterday already has a vote. And soon enough, the governing self becomes just one voice in a crowded room, no longer king, not even commander, simply another presence competing for influence. This is spiritually dangerous because once the inner court is disorderly, the rest of life begins to reflect it. A man who cannot govern thought will struggle to govern speech. A man who cannot govern speech will struggle to govern conflict. A man who cannot govern conflict will struggle to govern relationship. A man who cannot govern relationship will struggle to govern direction. And a life without governing order becomes increasingly expensive to live. That is the fifth lesson. If you lose authority in the mind, you will lose authority everywhere else later. You see this in quiet ways long before disaster. You mean to work, but your attention splinters. You mean to rest, but your mind keeps bargaining with stimulation. You mean to let something go, but keep reopening it. You mean to be present, but carry 5 unfinished arguments inside your body. You mean to act with dignity, but remain emotionally available to every irritation that knocks. Most people think their problem is that they need better tactics. Often the deeper problem is that they have never learned how to stop mentally collaborating with what weakens them. They keep feeding the thing they want to be free from. They rehearse the insult, they revisit the rejection, they entertain the temptation, they negotiate with the impulse, they keep peering into the life they claim not to envy, they keep giving oxygen to states they claim to hate. Then they ask why peace does not stay. Peace does not stay where indulgence is constantly invited, and this is where the script of weakness becomes brutally practical, because the invaded mind always spills into the invaded day. You do not lose your life in grand gestures. You lose it in calendars, mornings, sleep cycles, defaults, interruptions, delays. You lose it in the pattern of your ordinary hours. A scattered day is rarely just a scheduling issue. It is usually a moral issue. That may sound too severe for modern ears, but it is true. Because what is a day except a field where values become visible? What you say matters either enters your time or it does not. What you claim to believe either becomes behavior or it remains theater. What you say you are building either receives repeated labor or it remains fantasy. And this is why so many people feel estranged from themselves. Their intentions and their routines are strangers. The sixth lesson is this: a disordered day is not merely inefficient, it is identity erosion. Every time you repeatedly say one thing matters while daily life reveals another, trust in yourself declines, quietly at first, then deeply. You start noticing that your promises carry no force, your plans produce no movement, your motivation comes and goes like weather. You become a spectator to your own stated ambitions. That is a humiliating way to live, even when no one else can see it. The Stoics would not have treated time management as a shallow productivity game. They understood time as substance. Seneca especially saw the waste of life with horrifying clarity. Not because every minute must be optimized into some sterile ideal, but because a person who lives carelessly with time often lives carelessly with soul. To waste a day is never only to lose a day, it is to reinforce the kind of person who wastes days. That is why waiting for motivation is such a damaging habit. It trains dependence on a condition you do not control. It teaches you to work only when the body volunteers, to move only when emotion cooperates, to obey the climate rather than the command. But serious people do not build life that way. They understand something simple and hard. Action is often what produces clarity, not the other way around. You do not wait to feel settled before becoming orderly. You become orderly, and settlement begins to follow. You do not wait to feel disciplined before acting with discipline. You act with discipline, and identity starts catching up. You do not wait to become the kind of person who can be trusted. You start honoring the structure that trust requires. That means mornings matter, sleep matters, physical order matters. What you touch first matters. The presence or absence of friction matters. What you place near your attention matters. How often you fragment yourself matters. The person who says they want an unshakable mind while living in constant stimulation is asking for harvest without planting. An overstimulated life produces a porous mind. If your attention is always being punctured, your character will feel punctured too. Because attention is not a small thing. Attention is the instrument by which a life is shaped. Where attention repeatedly goes, selfhood gradually follows. That is why endless delay is so corrosive. Delay is not always laziness. Sometimes it is fear. Sometimes it is perfectionism. Sometimes it is avoidance wearing intelligent clothes. But whatever form it takes, repeated delay teaches the body and mind a terrible lesson that duty is negotiable. Once that lesson settles in, everything gets weaker. Your word weakens, your standards weaken, your endurance weakens, your confidence weakens, because real confidence is not built by self-talk. It is built by evidence. Evidence that you can give yourself an order and watch yourself obey it. Without that evidence, the mind becomes argumentative. It no longer trusts direction. It suspects every demand. It asks for relief before effort. It wants certainty before commitment. It wants applause before labor. And this is where the seventh lesson appears. The undisciplined person does not merely waste time, they teach themselves that they cannot be relied upon. That is a deeper wound than inefficiency. Because once self-trust erodes, anxiety grows in the vacuum. Of course it does. How could the mind remain calm when it has learned that its own declared intentions mean very little in practice? So the answer is not endless self-criticism. The answer is restoration through repeated proof. A cleaner routine, a more serious morning, a clearer start, less theatrical planning, more embodied obedience. Fewer declarations, more repetitions, less obsession with perfect systems, more respect for systems, more respect for simple structure. Make the day credible again, not glamorous. Credible. Build a life whose outer form stops insulting your inner aspirations. And then there is the third assault. The one many people never fully admit because it feels too exposing. You can lose your life to other people without ever being directly controlled by them. All it takes is that their imagined opinion becomes more important than your governing principles. This is how approval-seeking destroys dignity, not only when a person becomes obviously submissive, but when they begin editing themselves in anticipation of response. They speak through the imagined audience. They choose through the imagined audience. They measure their worth through reflected attention. They build a self for display and then slowly suffocate inside it. The eighth lesson is this: whoever you need to impress has already acquired power over you. That power may be subtle. It may look like comparison. It may look like resentment. It may look like obsession with status. It may look like the inability to speak plainly because you are still calculating reception. It may look like pretending not to care while secretly needing to be seen. But the result is the same. Your center of gravity moves outward. Your peace becomes public property. And once that happens, the mind becomes impossible to stabilize. Because people are unstable measurements, crowds are unstable judges. Attention is unstable nutrition. Applause has no loyalty. Reputation is partly written by people who do not know you, and partly by people who are projecting their own needs onto you. To build your inner life on that foundation is to build on weather. Stoicism offers one of the hardest freedoms here. The freedom to be governed by character rather than audience. That does not mean becoming antisocial. It does not mean contempt for others. It means refusing to outsource self-worth. It means understanding that most people are too occupied with their own fears, their own desires, their own image, their own unfinished battles to think about you with the intensity you imagine. And yet entire lives are distorted by this imagination. People stay quiet when they should speak, stay available when they should leave, stay resentful instead of honest, stay imitative instead of principled, stay visible instead of becoming real. They fear judgment so much that they live in self-betrayal and then call that maturity. But there is no dignity in being liked for a version of yourself you had to dilute in order to be accepted. And there is no freedom in winning attention at the price of inward dependence. Comparison deepens the wound. Because comparison deepens the wound. Because comparison teaches you to inspect your life through the distortions of appearance. Their success becomes your failure. Their ease becomes your deficiency. Their recognition becomes evidence that you are late. Their image becomes a weapon against your own becoming. This is poison to the Stoic mind, not because achievement is unimportant, but because envy makes accurate judgment impossible. It makes you interpret another person's surface as the whole truth. It blinds you to process. It blinds you to cost. It blinds you to your own path by keeping your eyes chained to someone else's lane. Resentment follows naturally, and resentment is one of the most expensive emotions a human being can host. It drains initiative while pretending to offer moral clarity. It gives you the emotional sensation of action while leaving your actual condition unchanged. It makes you feel justified while keeping you weak. So here is the ninth lesson. Every time you make your peace dependent on comparison, approval, or control over others, you hand your life to forces that cannot love you back. That sentence matters because many people say they want strength, but what they really want is favorable reflection. They want the world to reassure them. They want other people to validate their direction. They want circumstances to confirm their worth. They want their peace delivered externally. But no serious life can be built that way. There comes a moment, if you are honest, when excuses stop sounding intelligent. That is the point of no excuse, not the moment you become perfect. The moment you can no longer pretend not to know. You see what you have permitted. You see what you have rehearsed. You see what you have renorized. You see the cost in your days, your attention, your reactions, your relationships, your unfinished potential, your exhausted spirit. And something in you stops wanting more explanation. It wants a verdict. For me, one of the clearest shifts came when I realized that what I had often called seriousness was sometimes just undisciplined mental intensity. What I had called carefulness was often overthinking. What I had treated as depth was sometimes simply too much reaction, too much inner noise, too much energy, awarded to things that had never earned that kind of jurisdiction over my mind. That recognition was not dramatic, it was clean. And clean recognition can be harsher than emotional collapse because there is nowhere left to hide inside it. You begin to understand that peace of mind is not proven in easy conditions. It is proven when uncertainty arrives and you still refuse mental chaos. When pressure rises and you still refuse to become inwardly scattered. When emotion speaks loudly and you still refuse to grant it authority it has not earned. At that point, self-deception becomes harder to tolerate, and that is the 10th lesson. The turning point begins when you stop asking how you feel and start asking what you are allowing. That question changes everything, because if what has weakened you was built through allowance, then rebuilding begins through standards, not fantasies. Standards. Standards for what enters the mind. Standards for what kind of inner speech you permit. Standards for what kind of mourning you accept. Standards for how long resentment is allowed to remain. Standards for how quickly you return to duty. Standards for whether your schedule reflects your stated values. Standards for whether your reactions are becoming more honorable or more childish. This is the counterattack. And it begins first with the mind. Retake the mind by becoming watchful. Watchful over interpretation. Watchful over interpretation. Watchful over the moment an impression arrives and tries to masquerade as truth. The disciplined person does not believe every thought simply because it appears internally. They interrogate. They slow the verdict. They challenge the meaning. They refuse to build a world around first impressions. A difficult thought says, "You are failing." They answer, "That is a thought, not a decree." Anxious anticipation says, "Something bad is coming." They answer, "Uncertainty is here, but prophecy has not been granted." Anger says, "Answer now." They answer, "Urgency is not authority." Sadness says, "Withdraw from everything." They answer, "Feeling low does not relieve me of the duty to govern myself well." This is not denial, it is rightful rule. You begin reclaiming command over what enters, what stays, and what grows. That means less mental rehearsal of injury, less unconscious repetition of fear, less fascination with insult, less sentimental loyalty to damaging patterns. It means learning to starve what once fed on your attention, and it means replacing vague inward drift with deliberate inward speech. Not cheap affirmations, not theatrical positivity, clear speech. This matters, this does not, this feeling can be carried, this problem requires action, not panic, this urge can pass unanswered, this setback changes the road, not the law, this is uncomfortable, not catastrophic. Over time, this creates steadiness, not because life softens, but because the mind stops volunteering for extra suffering. Then, retake the day. A reclaimed mind with a lawless schedule will soon be tested beyond its strength. So make structure visible. Wake with intention. Do not begin the day by surrendering attention to the world's noise. Protect the first hour from invasion when possible. Put your body in order. Put your environment in order. Decide what must be done before the day begins negotiating with you. Let action come before appetite when duty requires it. The modern person often wants emotional certainty before beginning, but that posture guarantees delay. Begin before you feel complete. Begin before motivation gives permission. Begin while the resistance is still speaking. The person who becomes unshakable is not the one who always feels ready. It is the one who has stopped requiring readiness as a condition for honorable action. Work in blocks. Rest without dissolving, eat without sedation, sleep with seriousness. Remove what predictably scatters you. Create friction against weakness and ease against duty. This is not sterile self-optimization. It is moral architecture. You are building a day that teaches your nervous system, your attention, and your identity the same lesson. We are no longer available for casual collapse. Then retake your position under pressure, because all discipline that works only in calm conditions is unfinished. Can you hold your tongue when insulted? Can you remain ordered when disappointed? Can you continue the work when unseen? Can you bear boredom without running to stimulation? Can you endure loneliness without reaching for degrading substitutes? Can you face uncertainty without turning it into theater? Can you suffer a setback without converting it into self-condemnation? This is where philosophy becomes embodied. Anyone can sound wise in ideal conditions. Anyone can praise restraint when nothing is provoking them. Anyone can claim independence when nothing is being withheld. But pressure reveals allegiance. Under pressure, weak behavior looks like immediate discharge, immediate reaction, immediate self-pity, immediate escape, immediate abandonment of standards. Disciplined behavior looks different. It pauses, it absorbs, it examines, it responds in proportion, it preserves dignity. It continues. This is where your earlier training pays off. Because when life presses against your weaknesses, you will not rise to your intentions. You will fall to your conditioning. So condition yourself towards steadiness. Practice not obeying every impulse. Practice not obeying every impulse. Practice doing difficult things before they become emergencies. Practice silence when the ego wants spectacle. Practice order when the body wants drift. Practice returning quickly when you fall short, without turning one failure into a philosophy of defeat. The inner citadel is built exactly this way. Not in one heroic day, not in one perfect month. Brick by brick, refusal by refusal, correction by correction. And then, after enough honest labor, a different kind of person begins to emerge. A person who is not so easy to invade. Not because life has stopped being difficult, but because so many of the old points of entry have been closed. Not every comment enters. Not every temptation negotiates. Not every mood receives a seat at the table. Not every disappointment becomes identity. Not every delay becomes despair. Not every audience gets access to self-worth. The world is still noisy, but it no longer has immediate access to the throne. And that changes the way a person moves. Silence stops feeling empty. It starts feeling expensive. Boredom stops feeling like an emergency. It starts feeling like training. Rejection stops feeling like annihilation. It starts feeling like clarification. Discomfort stops feeling like an insult. It starts feeling like the cost of seriousness. Certain old behaviors begin to embarrass you, not because you are pretending to be above them, but because you can now see how small they made you. The endless checking. The endless explaining. The endless explaining. The addition to emotional drama, the need to be understood by everyone. The habit of giving your enemies rent-free space in your head. The cheap surrender to comfort every time effort asks for something more noble. You outgrow these things not through performance but through increased self-respect. And the peace that arrives here is different from the peace people usually chase. It is not the peace of permanent ease. It is not the peace of getting your way. It is not the peace of universal approval. It is not the peace of never feeling disturbed. It is the peace of inward command. The peace of knowing that when pressure arrives, you are less available to panic. The peace of knowing that when impulse arrives, it must now make an argument. The peace of knowing that your day has shape, your mind has standards, your speech has restraint, your values have entered behavior. This peace is earned. It is earned by what you stop feeding. It is earned by what you stop excusing. It is earned by what you continue doing after the mood changes. It is earned by the increasing distance between stimulus and obedience. That is the architecture of the stronger self. An unshakable mind is not a mystical gift. It is a trained sovereignty, and sovereignty always has laws. Guard your attention. Interrogate your impressions. Do not romanticize instability. Do not let comfort write your character. Do not let public opinion become private government. Do not speak to yourself in ways that make cowardice sound intelligent. Do not confuse feeling deeply with seeing clearly. Do not postpone honorable action while waiting for a cleaner emotional climate. Do not keep reopening doors you are trying to close. Do not give chaos a sacred place simply because it arrived from within. These are not slogans. They are survival laws for a serious life. Because the neglected inner life is never neutral. It is always being occupied by something. If not principle, then appetite. If not judgment, then mood. If not discipline, then drift. If not truth, then appearance. So the question is not whether your mind will serve a master. The question is which master it will serve. Will it serve impulse? Will it serve the crowd? Will it serve comfort? Will it serve wounded pride? Will it serve old fear? Will it serve comparison? Will it serve the algorithm? Or will it finally serve the highest law you are willing to live under? That is the final order. Stop feeding what weakens you. Stop treating every inner tremor as revelation. Stop granting your habits more innocence than they deserve. Stop calling yourself powerless in places where you are merely undisciplined. Stop waiting to become different while rehearsing the same permissions. Build the mind you can stand inside when life turns hostile. Build the day that does not betray your stated values. Build the posture that remains intact when rejection, boredom, uncertainty, insult, and pressure come to inspect your foundations. Because they will come, and when they come, they will reveal whether you built a self or merely decorated a wound. If this resonated, leave a like, comment with the line or insight that hit you hardest. And subscribe if you want more grounded Stoic philosophy and self-mastery content that treats your inner life with the seriousness it deserves. But more than that, leave here with a decision. A quiet one. A severe one. A severe one. A clean one. No more casual surrender. No more emotional self-betrayal. No more worship of comfort dressed up as peace. From this point forward, your mind does not belong to chaos. It answers to a higher command. Become the master of your mind. Rebuild, refocus, rise,